Another Furry Con, a brand new convention located in Ontario, California, but not to be confused with Ontario, Canada. I was lucky enough to be around the area while this convention was going on, so I thought to myself, let's drive down over to this first year event. Now, due to time constraints, I was only able to speedrun the con for about 24 hours, but what I experienced, I will tell you, was impressive. And this comes from a doggo who has been to a fair bit of conventions. So let's recap and dive into this first year furry convention, starting with information about the convention itself. Now, since it's their first year, this is just the beginning of their journey as a furry convention. So let's start with the leadership of the AFC board, which is Rubix as the chairman, Scribbles as the vice chairman, and Chip Unicorn as the Con Ops director. The theme for the convention was Fantasy Adventure Furs, which was a fantasy and roleplay game inspired. Their charity was the Jab Canine Conservation and Educational Center. As attendees, you could come up to see the animals in person and even go into the enclosures to pet them. The guests of honors for this year, which were so freaking impressive, let me tell you, was voice actor Sean Chiplock, voice actors Jaden Libron and Derek Stephen Prince, animators Kira Kopetsky, fursuit maker Kimoto Copy, and last but not least, the very talented and well-renowned YouTuber, the Odd Ones Out. We even got a surprise visit from another well-known YouTuber as an attendee, who was none other than Ethan Nestor. A powerhouse GOH lineup that made all the attendees super excited, including myself. And another staggering thing to note is that this first year con blew the lid when it came off to attendance, an impressive 3,533 attendees, a number I myself haven't seen out of a first year furry con. Already a great start, and I can't wait to see the history they will create as another furry con. Moving on to traveling for the con, there is some good news in this department. For one, a big positive is that the Ontario International Airport, ONT, is literally across the street from the convention center and main hotels. So it's about around a 4-minute drive, and honestly, you could almost walk to it if you were allowed to do so. So you can kiss those worrisome traffic headaches goodbye. Now, locationally is another plus in my book. For Ontario is somewhat centrally located from other major cities within SoCal. So not only could you fly to other airports and drive over to the con, but driving to the con locally isn't too bad either. For example, it's a 30 to 45 minute drive from Los Angeles, Anaheim, and Santa Ana, an hour from Long Beach and Palm Springs, and about an hour and 45 minutes from San Diego. So again, this makes driving a really great option for SoCal residents and attendees that are visiting from outside the state, but maybe like to see other areas of California or stay with friends before and after the con. I myself drove up with friends starting in San Diego, spending a day in Palm Springs checking out the sights, then heading straight over to the con in Ontario. Also, there is a lot of parking at the convention center itself and at the respected hotels, so there are no worries about finding a place to park if you are driving to the convention. OOC even has EV charging stations there too. And on the transit side of things, there are options running you to and from the convention from the more nearby cities, with an estimated time of about 2 to 4 hours, depending on what direction and city you are coming from, based on what I found out on Google Maps. So once I arrived at the convention center and got settled in, I noticed some interesting things about the hotels and convention space as a whole. One interesting fact about this con is that the hotel layout reminds me of the AntherCon, and that the convention center is its own entity with a tons of hotels surrounding it. The difference though is that the Ontario Convention Center is not attached to any hotels at all. So no skybridge access means no matter where you stay hotel-wise, you have to walk outside, which for some could be a little daunting, especially for fursuiters, being it's the hotter part of the year. Another interesting aspect of this location is that there are a crap ton of hotels around the convention center, many within a simple walking distance. So it would take a long time before this con runs out of space for the attendees. The Ontario Doubletree Hotel, which is one of the main hotels, is on the same street as the convention center, where the other main hotel, the Resident Inn Ontario Airport Hotel, is on the other side of the street almost directly parallel to the convention center, though you can easily use the crosswalk to walk over to the convention space with ease. Now, this also brings a somewhat downside to the layout of AFC, in that it's convention center or bus for this con when it comes to gatherings with other attendees. There are no hangout areas outside the convention space, and the hotels don't even provide any designated lounge space for the attendees. So once the convention space closes, it's either a room hangout or bust. Inside the Ontario Convention Space itself, it was a cool and impressive space, allowing 250,000 square feet of venue space taken up entirely by the furry convention. Inside included food options like gourmet concessions, a coffee station, alcoholic beverages stands, and more, which I will go into more detail later. The convention center is split up by a top and bottom floor. The first floor of the convention center, which is where the majority of events are being located, is pretty big and spread out in a good way, with multiple directions and ways to get around, making accessibility and navigation simple. The second floor, which is also easily accessible, is used for additional panels, quiet space, and things like tabletop gaming. What I found interesting though about the convention spaces itself is that the rooms were quite huge and in a style that is kind of reminiscent of Another Con hangar space used for the dealer den. Inside the spaces, the con would utilize cloth wall partitions to separate certain areas and events. It wasn't the most aesthetic choice, giving you a more gated feeling since it's not fully partitioned up to the ceiling, and all the sound coming from those areas would travel around the entirety of the con space. But it did the job for what they were wanting to accomplish. Now, I did feel some of the spacing choices to be a bit interesting. For example, the main event stage, where I found the stage itself nice and spacious, with cool lighting for DJs and others to perform on. It was a little bit smaller than I would have liked and felt kind of closed in. It was nice though that the headless lounge was added next to it so fursuiters didn't have to go far. If it were me, I would have had the main stage actually over in the night market area where the event was being held, so have them switched. Or maybe even have the same layout they have currently, but only have the night market event on Friday night and then move the main stage event over to the full enclosed area on Saturday and Sunday. It's just a food for thought, but again, it's AFC's first year, and it's a great space with tons of room to grow as they utilize the space more and more in coming years. Going back to the hotel layout themselves, they are all different depending on where you were staying. I stayed at one of the main hotels, the Ontario Doubletree Hotel, and like other Doubletrees I have stayed at before, they are usually spread out long ways in different wings or sections, with usually floors 1 through 3 and 4. So you don't have to go up many flights or levels or deal with a elevator con situation. However, it can be a bit daunting when walking across the hotel spaces, especially if you get yourself disoriented or lost. But the hotel itself was honestly lackluster in my opinion, especially for what they would charge you to stay off room block. The rooms were dated, and the Suite King we got was, just a really big king room with nothing to write home about. Plus, I found the staff not to be helpful or accommodating when I updated them about our traveler room time. Now, the Resident Inn layout are apartment-style hotels with a full kitchen inside and outside access for each hotel room. So it's great for attendees that like to store lots of food and cook up their own meals. Otherwise, I don't know much about the other hotel rooms on the con block and how they were, so please tell me in the comments your experience of the ones I didn't mention. Again, since I was only there for one full day, I won't be able to go fully in depth outside my own experiences and observations on the food and drink front. In the convention center itself, there was a surprising number of pick up and go options, such as sandwiches, burgers, pretzel stands, coffee and drinks, pizza, chicken tenders and fries, and more. So I found that a big plus if you wanted to grab a meal or snack throughout the day. And outside the convention center, there are of course a couple of places inside some of the hotel themselves, but I didn't get any indicator if they were good or not. Otherwise, you'll be taking a quick 5-minute drive or Uber over to several fast food options or a restaurant or two. So if I had to rate what I saw on the food and drink front, AFC would be on the mid to lower score when it comes to food options, but nowhere near the worst. And if you want booze, there are several options, some with the ability to deliver about a 5 and 10 minute drive from the main hotel. Now moving on to registration, for the first year it wasn't that bad, especially with the higher attendance they weren't expecting. The only downside I heard from attendees is that they had the line outside. So on the first day, you were out in very hot weather, which was uncomfortable. So the best advice for next year is to keep the line fully indoors, if possible, for the safety and comfort of the attendees. I rocked up on Saturday and was in and out of the reg line in like 2 minutes, which wasn't surprising. Shifting gears into events that went on during the convention, I will be focusing on the ones I was able to again observe and attend. So don't be surprised if certain events aren't covered this round. So let's begin with an event that was a surprise given that I've only seen it overseas at Nordic BuzzCon and not at any North American cons. So I was excited to see the Maid Cafe at this con because I thought it was an amazing idea when I saw it over at NFC. So how does the Maid Cafe work, you ask? The Maid Cafe is a ticketed event which can be purchased for either the lunch block or the dinner block on Friday and Saturday and include one entree, side, and a beverage per person. The party side is limited to 8 people per table and guests are welcome to stay 1 hour maximum in the cafe. Once inside, patrons will be greeted by one of our adorable furry maids who are either in full or partial fursuit. There, you can then play games, win prizes, take pictures, and more. Now, I didn't get a chance to sit down at this event, but I got to take a look at it from the outside. I found it cute the way it was set up, and the fursuit maids looked awesome and adorable. But I would say I like the actual setup to be a bit better. It lacked the decor or ambiance to really elevate the vibe and your experience. There is a lot more that could be done on the decor side of things, so I would suggest really reaching deep for next year. Otherwise, awesome idea and event, which I hope they have next year. Honestly, like I said with Megaplex, there is a lot to improve upon with the night market. I mean, I know there's a lot of cons that are wanting to do this type of event, and attendees do love going to them. But as a con, you have to up the ante if you're going to throw this event, especially for 2 nights instead of just 1. Overall, there was just a lack of decorations and no real side performances to sell you on the feeling of a night market outside the vendors selling you adult-themed products. It was mostly just a regular furry DJ dance, with some attendees wearing more interesting attire, and even then, it didn't really feel like there was a lot going on there. A suggestion would be to limit to 1 day, really amp up the decor, add some side performances, and figure out what the con's goals are for the night market and blow it out of the park. Now, the DJ dances and music events were the bangers of the entire convention. The talent that came to the con to perform was nothing less than spectacular. From the first virtual concerts performed by Whispers and VRC Victory, to musical performances by Alex Gray, Cammy Cat, Oreo and CK9C, Ivy Combe, Chi Chi, Loti, and Psychotic Fox, to DJs spanning across the globe, such as Loprov, Sarami, Nonstop Pup, and DJ Goofy. One downside is that the convention center made all the dances end at 1 a.m., except for Sunday, which was at an early 9 p.m. It was really unfortunate since there was no place to go after the dances closed at the convention center, forcing everyone to leave the space. It would be awesome if they could negotiate a 2 a.m. dance convention space ending for next year. Otherwise, super impressive lineup of musical talent, probably one of the best I have seen at a furry con. And I know CK9C had a strong hand in putting all this together for the con, so kudos to them. Hopping down the virtual pipeline, we find Furality making its presence known at AFC. Donning their big screen, which hosts the portal, you could interact with all the awesome beings in the VR chat space in real time as they chat back to you. And if you would like to know more about Furality, they also had a booth as well in the dealer's den, which you could ask those burning questions and buy some of their great merch. And the VR chat meetup was also a good size attendance with a great vibe. And as I said in other con videos, I love the presence and inclusion of VR and its positive impact on the furry community and beyond. So let's keep pushing for events and meetups like these at furry conventions. Now, in terms of a party scene, I heard from a lot of attendees that the hotels didn't want to have any real parties or hangouts in the rooms. So many got shut down, adding to the downside of not having a designated party floor or places for attendees to go once the convention center closed up at 1 a.m. So a good idea might be to talk to the hotels for next year and possibly set up a designated floor for those that like to throw parties and events. To wrap up my recap of AFC, I just wanted to say that I was very impressed by this first year con, even only being there for a day. The attendance was again staggering, and I found the vibe quite inviting. And everyone seemed to be having a great time and able to easily navigate the con and hang out with friends. Also, the fun events, awesome GOH lineup, and stellar music put the cherry on the top. And I can only see this con getting better and better, so please keep an eye out for it. I will definitely be attending AFC next year and for the entirety of the convention. And finally, if you attend AFC this year, I would love to know your experience and perspective of this first year con. And as always, throw this doggo a bone, a like, follow, subscribe to support me and future videos. Till next time, stay awesome.